I am T. Ferguson. Welcome to the Distillery. This is an ongoing conversation for and by our creative media community.
And I'm Patrick Jager. And each conversation, the Distillery is an opportunity to talk about things that are challenging us right now, and an opportunity to talk about the next, where we think we need to be 6 months, a year from now, to succeed and thrive.
Yeah, because the one thing that we know for certain is that we don't know much is for certain, and that the world at the start of 2020 is no longer the same. We all have to adapt and rely on new skills, new tactics, and focus on different types of outcomes if we want to thrive as we move forward.
So here's how the Distillery works. We have 3 rounds. The now round, where we talk about things that are current and hitting us right now. A 2-on-1 conversation with one of our guests to dive deeper into what they do. And then the next round, where we talk about the things that we think are going to happen in the next 6 months to a year. With that, we start every episode with our poll. Mr. Ferguson, what's our poll this week?
Yes, absolutely. We have asked the community on a scale of 1 to 10 how they felt that COVID-19 would impact the creative communities. 10 was being the most positive about the near to midterm, and 1 being the most pessimistic.
So it's maybe not going to be surprising, T, that we hit almost right in the middle. It was just below 5.0. So probably wavering a little bit further into pessimistic than optimistic. And this is across all kinds of creative communities. I'm interested to see what you think of that.
Yeah, not too much into pessimistic, but a good balance. Look, I can understand it. I think that, obviously we know the audience that we asked, and everybody's in a different spot right now, all facing different challenges unique to their industry, to their locale. I mean, even that is really making such an impact. And, some people have been in this for, as I have, for 3 months, and we're in quarantine. We're eager to get out. I think I'm looking to be optimistic. But there are some real challenges, and there's some real things that I think are changing on a daily basis that make this, a little bit rough. But I think at the same time, it's, for the first time in a while, there's some new things to consider, I think those challenges and that those reasons that some people might be a little pessimistic can actually kind of be flipped. I don't want to be too much of a rah-rah cheerleader, but we can flip those on their head a little bit and say, okay, well, let's make that an exciting challenge to do things differently and think about things in new ways. So that's me being optimistic about those that are being pessimistic.
I think the only challenge I have is there are those that are going to be watching that say, that's great, but what does that mean? The problem is everyone's been sitting on their couch for 2-3 months. And over that time, they've all grown beards, gotten really comfortable watching TV and walking the dogs at all times of the day. And you don't have that collaboration of creativity. And I think with that, people have gotten very pessimistic, and everyone's saying, but what shoe drops first? Who gets back to work? How do we know if we're going to come back? Are we going to stay furloughed? Are we going to be able to have an income? Are things going to be the same? Are profit margins going to be the same? And what I'm hoping we start seeing is definitive leaders, people that actually employ, people that actually greenlight, helping to shape those answers. Because until we actually have those answers, I think everyone's still going to be like, I don't know.
Yeah, it definitely needs some, I mean, this is a real reason for this conversation, but a collective communal approach so that people are looking at every angle of how this sort of reemergence happens and how things pick back up. Everybody just thinking in their own vacuum, in their own silo, I think can be very daunting because, we have to all do this together. Again, I sound very rah-rah-y.
That's why we love you. Yeah. Everyone needs a cheerleader, you're mine.
Well, you're welcome.
So we have our 3 guests for today, and I think it would be great to have them weigh in on our poll. So without further ado, I think it's time for us to introduce this week's Distillery guests. Take it away.
Wonderful. Let's welcome Shab Azma. Shab, welcome.
Thank you.
She is at Flutie Entertainment, where she straddles the role of talent manager as well as developing licensing and strategic partnerships for all of their amazing A-list clients. One of those beautiful and brilliant examples is the full licensing program that she put together for Aisha Curry, which included cookware and bakeware and kitchen textiles, bedding, gardening, the whole bit, you can name it. She also served as executive producer on 2 seasons of Aisha's Food Network show and her ABC primetime show, Family Food Fight, which I know very well. Welcome. We're really happy to have you.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
All right, up next, we have my friend Chris Vivion. Chris is a partner and executive producer at Spacestation, a production company based in Brooklyn. Chris and his partner Matthew have created award-winning lifestyle cooking competition, comedy, animation, and unscripted programming for the likes of HBO, many of the Discovery Nets, IFC, Turner Broadcasting, just to name a few. They've also developed digital programming and products, including launching digital channels and extensions for iconic entertainment brands, but also had some really cool tech development as we look at the future in terms of live and cheaper camera operations. And we're really excited to talk a little bit about that coming up too. Chris, welcome.
Thank you very much.
Chris.
Thanks for having me.
And last but certainly not least, our special guest who we're going to put a little bit on the hot seat later on, Josh Sugarman. Josh, welcome. Josh is the CEO of the brand new Vampire.Pizza, which has been traveling throughout the country during this pandemic, actually delivering immersive experiences into quarantine families' homes, which is a really amazing sort of shift and modification on what immersive entertainment can look like, which we want to get into later. Last year, he also served briefly as the CEO of Blockbuster Video. Yes, that Blockbuster Video. Hopefully that's a story we'll get as well. Good to have you, Josh.
All right, so we're going to start diving right in, and this is our now round. So the first topic, this is the COVID response, reopening and confidence. Asking each of you, and Shab, I'm going to start with you. What do you feel personally, and how is this slow opening affecting your portion of the creative community?
Yeah, so listen, I am also very optimistic, and I am definitely seeing a wave of things opening up across the board, whether it's brands, more and more brands that are finally feeling free to release funds to go out there and procure our clients to do branded campaigns for them, all the way through production. I mean, we've had a lot of productions that have been put on hold, and we have been seeing now that we're getting things into pre-pro mode and we're getting actual dates on the calendar. And so from that perspective, we've had clients who've just been sitting around waiting, wondering whether they're going to be able to work. And we can finally say that the answer is seemingly a yes. And for us as a company who is, we're so reliant on production companies, networks, and or branded dollars, for us, it's obviously been a nice bit of a sigh of relief that we're seeing that things are definitely opening up and we're seeing opportunities come in pretty quickly. I was on the phone earlier with Amazon Live. As you guys probably know, Amazon's doing a lot of creative live experiences where you can see on their homepage, whether it's mainly music, but now they're doing a lot in the food space. I was just talking something with them in the fitness space. So I feel like companies are just trying to figure out, this and sort of the 2.0 version of what they're typically used to doing.
Josh, as someone that's creating these ideas right now and is ramping up some really interesting experiential work, where do you feel the reopening and kind of COVID, and how much is that affecting what you're doing?
I think for a company like us that is traveling the whole country, doing the same thing in different places, we're seeing how large and diverse a country we really are and how we're all handling this very differently. Every city we go to, we find not only are the restaurants and the businesses handling reopening differently, but so are the local staff. So I think what it's taught us is to really understand the city and the geography you're going into, and really understand how that those consumers and that audience is behaving right now in terms of the pandemic. We're gonna have to go national. National brands can still do things. You just have to do your work ahead of time and make sure you understand what's going on in the community that you're entering.
So I'm going to throw this over to Chris. Chris, how about for you? I mean, you're much more in the traditional production space. What is your restart, and how confident are you moving forward?
I think the 5 is probably a safe bet for a lot of people. I mean, I think you're seeing a lot of people getting really shut down and losing business and losing their businesses. And I think that it's already a pretty volatile market to begin with. I mean, the entertainment business has been shrinking in a lot of ways and expanding in other places. But I think for small companies like Spacestation, the opportunities get smaller, right? And some of the bigger companies, the opportunities remain big and large. And there's always niche players who can bring a project to a place like Netflix and sell it. But, you know, for us, it's always a matter of trying to get our foot more firmly in the door or all the way through the door. For us, we've looked at this in a couple of different ways. One is that because we already produce a lot of live content and we produce a lot of digital content, that's a market that's always been open to us and we've always been able to leverage. So when this happened, we made a point to reach out to all of our clients and say, hey, look, we have a robust post facility that's international and here in the US, so we can work around the clock. We have editors who are available. They're already working remotely. We put everybody remote a week before the orders were instituted, so we were ready to go. We also produce a lot of live content over the internet, so a lot of streaming content. So we reached out to our clients and said, hey, we have these capabilities. Quickly put together a capabilities proposal that said, here's what we can do remotely for you and for your clients if you need it. And that really worked out for us. So I think that with that in mind, you know, reopening, I think it's going to happen. I think people are going to get back to some semblance of normalcy, but I also think that with that in my back pocket, I know that we can be creative in our approaches going forward. And I think a lot of people will have to be and will want to be more creative in their approaches. I don't think that we're going to go to a world where everything is cheap because everyone's used to Zoom. I don't think that's the case. But I do think that people are going to be a little bit more flexible with how they produce stuff.
I would argue with you on the Zoom thing, but we can do that another time because I'm going to keep us going. I'm going to keep this going. I'm going to go to our second topic. So, and I'll let whoever wants to start this one. What is the biggest story in your creative world this week?
So when we started this about 11 or 12 weeks ago, out of necessity, we started with a pop-up model. You know, we could only produce so much of this product at once. We've since then gotten a lot better at it, and we've moved towards a retail model. So now with our product, which you used to have to make a reservation a week ahead of time to get pizza, which is not usually how one buys pizza, now you can go online and go to the website and awaken your vampire. You can start your experience on demand within 1 hour. So as long as your pizza partner is open, you're going to get your experience. You get an immersive experience delivered to your home 1 hour, which, you know, for somebody in the immersive spaces, you know, is so much the opposite of how it typically works, where we have to wait 24 hours just to find out the address of the place. So that we've rolled that out in beta here in LA. And you said in our creative world, what's exciting, there is so little creative about it. It's so operational that it's kept us all up at all hours of the day. We've been doing it on both coasts, trying to make sure that every order goes out at the right time. Yeah, but it's for us, that's been this week at Vampire.Pizza.
I love it. Thank you. Who's next?
Well, there's a couple things, to be honest with you. You know, I hinted earlier that production's picked up, which has been really great. It's been really interesting to hear how people are preparing, depending on the type of the show, whether it's a very big, large scale show, there's a lot of people involved, and the smaller scale stuff. So it's been interesting from a creative standpoint, just to hear the nuances of what people are having to factor in when they're thinking about production. But separately from that, we all know what's going on right now and how sensitive of a time it is. And we have a diverse client roster, and it's been really nice to see that there has been an extreme interest in diversity from a production and creative standpoint. And for us as a company, it was just, we've been waiting for this time, and we're so happy. You know, we to be honest with you, we've always hated to have to give our clients who are of a diverse background the same old answer of, oh, it's not just you, it's this. But now there's mandates out there, as you all know. You know, the networks, brands, everyone's looking for it. So we've gotten a lot of inquiries this week for some of our diverse client roster, which has been nice. And listen, obviously it's a dead, people know this is why. But at the end of the day, our clients are like, we're happy. We're just happy to be working. And especially at a time when not a lot of people are working, they're actually the first ones that are getting the phone calls again. So it's really nice from that perspective. Creative, not creative. It's been a big sort of, for us as a company, you know, it's been a mandate for us for 2 years now to make sure we have more representation, more diverse representation on our client roster. So for us, we felt excited that that's now going to pay in spades, hopefully, in these coming weeks.
That's awesome. Chris, your turn.
The thing I noticed the most was the sustained online social media presence of the Black Lives Matter movement and the creative community's response to collectively sharing all of the resources that are out there from a production perspective and from a creative agency perspective of places that you can go to be more thoughtful and consistent about hiring and partnering and being an ally. And to me, it's been so interesting to watch people stay consistent. Like the lifestyle content that you normally see on social, especially Instagram, has all but disappeared.
Yeah.
And it feels weird and awkward when you see something, family stuff notwithstanding, but like when you see someone try to post something about like their bread or something, like guilty as hell. But that's gone. And when you see those moments, you're like, oh, that just creatively seems off. And the conversations of watching some of the people like Akilah Hughes, who's a talent that we've worked with a lot, call out influencers and say, you are an influencer and your job right now is to influence. And that means to not talk about lifestyle content, otherwise you're a salesperson. And like that message was so profound to me that I was just like blown away by creative people using that outlet in that manner so consistently.
Yeah.
Yeah, and people have been. It's a very creative response. Mm-hmm. Like the guidelines that are being put together, the suggestions, the how to find resources, the illustrations, the like here's how to have a conversation. Here's what you're not thinking about. I mean, the amount of times I'm like, oh shit, like I mean, I didn't think about it that way, or I'm definitely guilty of that. But delivered to me in a way, someone took the time to create an illustration, a series of illustrations. It's like a very, very creative response to a time that's really frustrating and tough for a lot of people.
All right, let's move on to our third topic for the now round. What has been, and if you don't have one, that's fine. What's been the biggest creative challenge you're facing right now?
I'll answer that. I mean, I honestly, it actually comes off of what Chris was just chatting about. So we have clients that have been contracted to post certain types of content that they've been paid to post, and they've been pushing that timeline because of Black Lives Matter. And to your point, this sensitivity of what's tone appropriate. And we are trying to find this delicate balance, because at the end of the day, there's certain initiatives that are time-based. These brands are trying to hit a certain timeline. And so creatively, it's like, how can an influencer or celebrity put something out there without coming across as insensitive, but also honoring their contracts? Mm-hmm. You know, and so that's been a challenge for us. Our clients have been looking for us for guidance. I've pulled in a PR crisis expert to get his opinion. And it's a challenge because, you know, we don't want them to fall under breach. Most brands have been very understanding, but at some point it's like, but if I don't get this by this certain date, then I have to withdraw the contract. Mm-hmm. So it's kind of a tricky, slippery slope that we're dealing with. And it's been incredibly challenging, to be honest with you.
I can imagine.
Yeah.
Anyone else?
I would say, I think just, and this has been going on for a while, not being able to be in the same room as one another. And for important issues like the one we've been talking about here, and then just general traditional creative issues, not being able to communicate each other, not even just face to face, but in the same office for 10, 11, 12 hours a day, and being able to come in and out and add and subtract from conversations and really, you know, live creatively together and go through that process. This really doesn't replicate it, especially if this continues, you know, for months and months and months.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think that the future casting while it's always been incredibly hard, especially in our business, you know, like where's the next gig going to come from? If you're not a company that has, you know, a guaranteed 13 seasons of a show where you're like, you know, you're living quarter to quarter and, you know, trying to figure out what next quarter looks like, what happens when January rolls around. Now it's even more compacted. You know, we're looking at a couple of productions that have been, to Shab's point, like, you know, greenlit, ready to go, but they're celebrity contingent. And we're talking to talent bookers about when they think people are going to be comfortable with, you know, shooting again, traveling again, coming on the set again. And then we're dealing with questions around the content that we're going to be creating. Like, if it's lifestyle content, is it how are we addressing things? Is it just, like the Conan O'Brien show? He's like, you will not learn anything here. You're going to come out of this at-home production stupider than you were before. Like, they purposely said, we're going to have fun. We're not in that world. We're in the fun Conan escapist world. So for us, it's been a lot of like trying to balance the right tone with the right timing and not shoot ourselves in the foot, like coming out of the gate too early or waiting too long. And then all of a sudden come October, we're back to where we were. So how do we maximize our time?
That is a lot to think about. Thank you guys for your honesty in that round. We're going to move on.
So this is where we can dive a little bit deeper for you, Josh. I think that you have a really interesting story, and I don't want to step on it. I want you to tell this. But if I could ask for you to sort of give us a little bit of the genesis of Vampire.Pizza, and I am obviously familiar with it and have been a bit in the weeds with you on some things, but I think for the group, it's a really great example, and it's something that I've used as a benchmark of a successful and appropriate way to pivot in real time. I don't even know if you would use that term, but anyway, it's been extremely impressive, and I think also very sensitive and appropriate in the way that you've managed through both COVID and supporting of artists and storytellers and all of those unique components to the original sort of concept of Vampire.Pizza. So if you could kind of fill us in and tell us more about that and kind of how it started and where you see it going.
I guess it all started about a year and a half ago, when I became the CEO of Blockbuster Video. My company acquired the rights to relaunch Blockbuster Video as a place families could go around the country to literally enter the movies. I'm just a huge fanboy of everything immersive. I was fortunate enough when I was working on a TV project to be in London a lot and got to do secret cinema on the regular, and just loved these large scale ornate, detail-oriented, well-thought-out experiences where you got to become something and make your own entertainment and really lean forward. The only problem, with all due respect to my friends at Secret Cinema, is it's outrageously expensive. I mean, you couldn't get out of there without spending, £300 or whatever it is for two people for the night. So we had this idea of how do you democratize that? How do you bring that idea to more places across the US and then to the world? And we realized there was already a brand out there that did that, and that was Blockbuster Video. So it's a very long wind up to the company that I no longer work for. We had been working on that for about 18 months, right up until the point when the pandemic began. And we were about to sign a lease actually in Austin for the pilot location. Blockbuster was just such a large, capital-heavy, traditional real estate sort of project. The CapEx for a location was millions of dollars and might still be millions of dollars. We'd love to get back to it eventually. Negotiating an LOI with a major real estate developer and getting them to understand your language and starting to understand their language more it's an incredibly long process. They make it long by their necessity. They're in this business for hundreds of years, not for two. They want a 10-year lease, not a 6-month lease or a 12-month lease. So we were so deep in that, and then of course all this began, and my partner and I looked at each other and said, this is probably not the time for an expensive new LBE concept. And after a week or so of that, we realized we had all these great people who, like us, were now sort of out of a project after getting quite far into it. Storytellers, designers, game designers, really, really across the board media, video production. And I guess it just occurred to us that there had to be a way to instead of bringing people to us, like at Blockbuster, where we could bring it to them. And we realized there are folks out there who already do that. And that's the pizza delivery guy. There's a whole network of folks out there who are primed to bring entertainment right into the house. You just have to add that to their, to their car or their bicycle. And from that, Vampire.Pizza was born. That was the genesis of it. It's how do you move fast? How do you use something that already exists and get something new out there quickly?
So I have a question. Do you think that had this challenging time not happened, you would have come to this type of pivot anyway?
No, zero, no way. It was a product it was a product of my necessity. I was bored, and I think when we feel that as people who think about this all the time, that's the moment. I think also if we hadn't gone through the very long process of getting Blockbuster ready, this also wouldn't have happened. There was so many, and I think anybody who's been through a project like that, you learn so much about how challenging it can be to, how slow those things are to scale when you're dealing with brick and mortar. And I think we started to feel that frustration and realize that even after we opened the pilot location, how much slower this would probably be to really go national. So we felt that already. And I think we had also started to realize the value of existing distribution networks. For us with Blockbuster, it was Simon Malls or Westfield Malls. There were theaters, these white boxes out there already for us to put Blockbusters into. We thought about that a lot. And because we had thought about that, we were on the hunt for other existing distribution. So I think just a real confluence of coincidence and of course of really challenging times.
Josh, what were some of the experiences give me a sense of what was the pizza delivery guy doing that was different than dropping off a pizza?
So for us, the experience, a Vampire.Pizza experience, like I think any good experience, crosses several different mediums, right? So there's a live, or there has been a live component. That was when the pizza delivery guy dropped off the pizza. But that couldn't be a huge component by necessity. We needed contactless delivery. We had to understand CDC guidelines and follow them and give customers the peace of mind that we did understand that as an entertainment company and not a traditional food and beverage company. So that was the first component. The first pop-up, we found a great partner here in LA, a place called Ghost Pizza Kitchen. And they happened, as you might not expect, as you probably do expect in LA, to have a lot of actors on staff who were, and actually it was the owner, this guy, Ben Sales, who owns Ghost Pizza Kitchen, who, while we were distracted about 1,000 other things, really pushed that these actors have to really, he was going to take control and make sure his actors did a great job, even if it was only for 30 seconds. And it was only for 30 seconds that you saw the vampire. The other components are tabletop components. It's sort of an escape room in a box that brings you on and offline. Though we don't try to keep you online for very long because we want mom and dad to love Vampire.Pizza, and dinner time is not about screen time. This is about the complete, this is about getting your children off of, and us. Most of our customers are probably more like us than children. But I think, there is something so, for a brand, so enriching about mealtime that had been sort of, perhaps that's what some brands thought when they bought a McDonald's cup back, and they did branding like that. But in the immersive world, I think we had never fully understood how sticky that concept could be and how it could really change what otherwise is an experience you've seen before, or pieces of it you've seen before, and create something entirely new out of it.
Josh, can I ask if, obviously you had the creative side of all of this down, and it was such a tight story and everything, Bell and Vampire.Pizza and all of that was really so strong. I'm wondering if you had any oh shit or aha moments on the business side of things, like on the practical side of actually doing this and keeping it successful.
You mean like today?
Or how many oh shit moments have you had?
The first oh shit moment was how accomplishable this was, and how I don't want to say easily, but how if done right, how quickly this could scale. And that was the first moment where I think we had an aha, and that was a positive aha. I mean, the negative ahas were I would say largely operational. We made the first run of Vampire.Pizza. We thought of the idea, I think, on like March 29th. The website went up on April 1st, and we were sold out by April 4th.
Wow.
I think it sold out in 60 hours. We actually had to cut it off at 250 units. They were selling every 4 minutes. And we got very nervous. We realized we didn't really know how we could make that many, or if we could. We couldn't use any of our production pipelines. So if there's a lesson in that for the greater creative community, I think it's about recognizing that even during unusual times, if people respond to something in large and enthusiastic numbers, there's definitely another reason. Don't let people just tell you that this is a pandemic thing or your idea that might have worked. Now, if they're doing it, I think it means that you've tapped into something, and there might be changes to that thing, and you might be able to make it better, or when there are more resources available and people can leave their houses, but to keep that momentum going. So I think for us, that's absolutely what we'll do.
Well done, Josh. I mean, it's super impressive and it's super exciting. I think your points to the future and what your next looks like, I'd love to hear from the rest of the panel, just in terms of like, how do you see yourself, your portion of the industry? Actually, I think a really good question is, where do you see yourself personally, and how you personally are navigating through the next 6 months and a year, but also the specific portion of your industry adapting and evolving and changing. What are some of your future next moments looking like?
Shab, what's the talent world look like? What does talent look like in the future?
That's really interesting. I mean, listen, our pool is really we're really focused on experts, and I can just tell you that they're working a lot. Because they're the ones that can go out there and talk about the food and the DIY projects people are doing around the house. So again, my clients have thankfully been staying really busy from a social campaign standpoint. A lot of brands that are paying our clients to go out there and find interesting ways to weave the brand messaging into a content play organically. We're seeing a lot of like self-shot content, as you guys probably know. We've got all the morning shows, the GMAs, asking our clients to shoot at home, send in the video, then it goes and lives on, GMA.com, then we get brands who are like, hey, we're dying for broadcast placements, but we're not able to get them because no one's going into the sets right now. So we'll pay your talent to go out there and integrate our messaging when they're doing self-shot content. So again, there's a plethora, thankfully, I don't want to jinx it, of opportunity to coming in, because our clients are the people that are real experts talking about this in an organic way. So it feels less of a commercial and it feels more just genuine. So I think from that, we're just going to hopefully continue to ride this wave, this influx of need for brand integrations. And again, I come back to production. I mean, I'm talking to clients right now about, the fact that they may have to be quarantined on a production set and not leave for like 3 to 4 months. They're going to have to, these big shows, these big major network shows that have a ton of people involved. It's like figuring out the new normal. These are people that are parents that have children that they may not be able to see because there's no flying back and forth. And so just kind of managing that really from this end and trying to really help them decide whether they take a gig or not, because it could mean that they're really going to be sequestered for 2 to 3, 4 months. These are not actors. These are people that are not used to that kind of lifestyle. So for them, it's like, so it's a very, again, it's an interesting time. And these are the things that we're going to probably continue to see as we progress through COVID.
People still want to see the content. They still want to see their faces that they're familiar with. I think with the Today Show and GMA really showed that, the power of personality. I think that our client Obey Fitness, for example, they're a streaming fitness company. They have the benefit of, unlike Peloton, you don't need to buy an expensive piece of hardware to do it. You just need to pay for a subscription, and you get amazing popular music and amazing personalities, trainers that you grow to love. And that's great. And if people love working out at home, and I think they see that there's this cost savings and a commute savings and comfort of your own home. But at-home fitness is not a new thing. It's an old thing, in fact. But what is new is the ability to use social to create community. And what they've done is really, really well is been able to create an infrastructure of community that's there, being supported by the talent and supporting the talent. I think that's something that people are going to lean into a lot more. Brands are going to lean into a lot more. I think that virtual experiences, like to Josh's point, it's a little bit of you're doing a little bit of a mix between the virtual and the in real life. The brand that I saw, I was surprised at, and is doing a fantastic job, is Airbnb. Their virtual experiences are so phenomenal. I mean, not all of them. Some of them are just like kind of run of the mill, but the fact that there's all of these people online who used to be hosts in their cities who are now creating virtual experiences. And some of them are like, there's sangria and secrets with Spanish drag queens every night. And there's a guy in Prague who dresses up as like the old death doctor with the big beak who walks around Prague at midnight and gives you a tour of all the plague sites in Prague. You know, and that's awesome. Cool. I would do that if it was sunny out and, you know, people are playing beach volleyball and having beers. Like sometimes you don't want to go out, you know? So I think I think there's gonna be more of that. I mean, we're working with a major publishing brand, a major entertainment brand, huge brand who it does every year they do a huge festival. And we're going to help them do this festival remotely now. And it's going to be a big deal. And I think the people are going to love it. I think there's going to be more access. It's going to be less expensive. And you're going to feel closer to the people.
I would just chime in to say that right now, if every event is a virtual event, then it just becomes noisy, and it becomes, and they're all sort of looking and feeling the same, which is, at least in my world, the big challenge. People want to do it because they have to stay relevant. They have to stay within the conversation. They don't want a year or longer to lapse before they're back doing something similar to what they've normally done. But it's getting really hard to differentiate between all of them. It's been tough. And the next for that world, the next for a lot of the things that are on the licensing and partnerships and product side, which are always sort of very much beyond the now. Like you're always having to think beyond the success of a show that begets your live tour, that begets your product range and stuff like that. It's hard to get people to think that clearly beyond what they have to accomplish right now, which is a big challenge, at least in my side of things.
Yeah. I know Thomas and I talked about this, and I think people are going to be really itching to have an actual, like, the experience. And I think it'll probably happen really small and intimate being less people spread out, talk about outdoors. But I think that, you know, what we're starting to see on the virtual side too, is there is a component where, you know, there's something that people are getting physically sent to their door, that if it's a cooking as an example, and you're cooking virtually with your favorite celebrity chef, you have now gotten a meal kit in a box as an example that chef is sending you. That's branded. I'm sure there's a brand that's paying for that. And then you are all cooking with the same thing. So you're touching and feeling something that truly connects you with the experience. So you're not just watching something as a passive viewer, you're actually engaging in that way. So I think people are trying to get a bit more creative, because you're right, like everything is going virtual, and it's going to get to the point where it's just, they're going to be exhausted, and they're going to want to have something that they can truly experience.
I mean, Josh, what do you think? You've been doing that right now.
I'm a 5 also. You know, I think I'm going to equivocate with it sounds like everybody else on average that we don't know, and that people are nervous about making the wrong decision. And what concerns me about that is the creative space already has so many challenges. That's a hard one to add. You know, there's already so many reasons not to do something. It worries me that so many good ideas are just never gonna be because of this societal, financial, you know, capitalization, you know, brand that typically take risks, taking many less, especially in the event space.
I think that kind of gets us to a place to wrap this up. As we move forward and we start thinking about the next 6 months, what do you say to those that are not sure whether or not they still have the passion to do this kind of stuff? I mean, we're all very passionate about what we do. How can we motivate our friends to engage, and where would you have them start?
It's a volume game, and you have to continue to produce stuff. You have to continue to take shots at things. Sometimes you can do projects that you don't necessarily want to do. Not bad projects, like bad for your brand, but like projects that maybe you're like, oh, I don't really want to do that, because you don't know what's going to come of that project and who's going to, like, where that person who you did that, you know, the one-off for is going to end up running later down the road. Like, I'm just like a yes, 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 yes person, because I know that like that's how you stay active and say, but look, if we weren't yes people right now, we would have no work, and we would have laid off 12 people, and you know, it would have been awful. We would have started it from scratch. But because we were yes people, when we reached out to our clients and said, hey, what do you got for us? They were like, Spacestation's going to deliver. They're going to be able to get us what we need. And we were able to keep everybody employed. You know, we did get some government assistance, but we were able to keep everybody employed regardless of that. And I think that that's, you know, it's these stupid sayings like, you know, when the market's low, you buy. I mean, that's what we have to do. If you're a content creator or talent right now, you got to get out and start making stuff. I mean, that's what Josh did, right? You get like, oh, Blockbuster's not working out, so we're going to create Vampire.Pizza.
Just do it. I think just do it. Don't think about how you would have done it before, or what you used to think perfect was, or who the perfect team, or, you know, look at the people around you and say, what can we do that would make us happy? And you'll probably find people out there who want that. And, and don't say, okay, let me put out the calendar. And there's no calendar because we're all five. No. Don't know what it's going to look like. What can you do next week? As well as you can do it. And you know, it's not every creative works out like. I always say, it's probably the give the first version to people. Don't sit on it and wait for perfection. And if they see that kernel, then make it perfect.
We did a live stream, or like right in the middle of all of this for Bon Appetit. And it was with all their test kitchen editors before all that craziness happened. And everyone was like, okay, how are we going to do it? How are we going to do this live stream? How are we going to do this telethon? They raised $160,000 for Jose Andres, his kitchen initiative. Like everyone was wringing their hands about everybody, we were all like, it's not going to look good. It's not, there's too many people. And then we just said, no, we're just going to do it. We're just going to put everybody's phone. We're going to put it on Zoom. We're going to create breakout rooms, and we're going to pretend that they're production rooms in a green room. We're just going to effing do it. It's going to be fine. And people loved it because it wasn't overproduced. It didn't feel like everyone was trying to like button themselves up. It was like people were drinking and having fun, and it was great. It was the fans loved it. The audience really loved it because there were people doing what they did best, which was just be interesting and fun.
I would say for us, you know, we've been able to, because things had slowed down for a little bit, you know, we were able to be incredibly proactive as a management company. We typically, you know, we get a lot of inquiries in and we respond like Chris, you know, we say yes to a lot of things. Some things we're smaller than we're used to saying yes to. Or, you know, we try to be discerning. Our clients try to be discerning so they're not putting out a bunch of volume of content, but quality content. That being said, as a company, because we had to try to keep our employees employed, we were incredibly proactive, and we really researched and we looked at like the companies that were thriving in this time and the companies that weren't thriving in this time. Like, how are we going to get people to want to fly back get back on an airplane? How do each one of those airlines have a competitive advantage against their counterparts? How are we getting more tourism in other parts of the country and the world? And so for us, it's really kind of looking at where the white space is, where the void is, where things are depleted, and trying to help, utilizing our skills, our resources, our talent. And so we've actually, for the first time in a long time, because there was a bit of a lull, we're able to be really thoughtful and not just reactive, which has been proving to be incredibly successful for us too. So I would just say continue to be proactive, resourceful, and hopeful.
I think it's an amazing way, an amazing note to end this on, and sort of distilling, if you will, how we got to this point. But finding the hope, I think, in saying yes now, figuring out the rest later, but leaning into your real core competencies and taking that brief pause that we've all been gifted, right? To say, what do we do and what do we do well, and embrace that and run with it. All right. So I think obviously with hope in mind, we also have to take into consideration sort of how we're making money and what the business side of stuff is. The next poll for our community is going to be about what do you see and how do you feel profit margins will be growing or tightening moving forward. I think it's going to be really interesting to get a sense from everybody as to where those contractions are and where more additional money and opportunity can be. So curious to know your thoughts. Make sure to check us out at the distillery.live. You can participate in the poll. You can also leave us comments, suggestions, topics, we'll guests we may want to bring onto the show, and also be sure to check out all of the information about Shab, Chris, and Josh on the distillery.live.
And we really hope you will engage. I mean, this is a big one. Profit margins are tightening for a lot of people, and it will be fascinating to hear. And hopefully, all of us on this call will do the poll as well. But we really, really want to thank Shab and Chris and Josh. We really want to thank you guys for taking your time today. This was comforting for me to see friends and colleagues reiterate what I'm thinking and help me. Maybe I might be a 7 now. That's good. That's
good. We've accomplished something.
That's progress. So thank you guys very, very much for being here.
Thank you, guys.
7.5 now.
7.5
everybody.
now. Thank you.
Great seeing you all.
The future is now.